Good morning, students. So today I am going to start a new chapter, that is a physical world of class 11th physics, and this is a purely a theoretical chapter, and in the competitive examinations, uh, that is IIT and NEET, and even in your CBSE board examinations, there is a hardly 1 or 2 mark questions included in the exam, but still this is a very important topic. It has its own importance because this chapter tells us about the physics. What is physics? And in 11th and 12th, what we have to study. This gives a brief idea about the contents, what we have to study in our class 11th and 12th. So now this chapter covers the 4 important topics. The first is what is physics and the basic principles of physics. The second is scope and excitement of physics, and the third one is the physics, technology and society, and the fourth one is 4 fundamental forces in the nature. So now it is obvious that human have always been curious to know about the world around. This is the human nature. He wants to know what is happening in the world, and there are so many examples we see in our daily life, like repetition of the day and night, and the changes of the seasons throughout the year, and the floods, the droughts, the earthquakes, the tsunami, and there are so many natural phenomena which we see in our daily life. Now this type of imaginative and inquiring behavior of the human gives birth to the science and technology. So now coming to the important point, that is physics. We know that physics is the branch of science, so we have to know about the science. This science is the systematic approach to understand the natural phenomena. What is science? Science is a systematic approach to understand the natural phenomena. And for the scientific approach, what is the scientific approach? This scientific approach involves so many steps. I will describe one by one. There are so many steps involved in the scientific approach. The number 1 is scientific observation. Number 2, the controlled experiment. Number 3, the qualitative reasoning. Number 4, the quantitative reasoning. And number 5, mathematical calculation. And number 6, predictions. And the number 7 is the verification of the result. So now these 7 steps are involved in this scientific approach. Now if we take an example, I will make you clear with an example. Suppose in our daily life we see the flow of water, because we see that the water is flowing in the river, in the ponds, in the sea, and in the lake and in the waterfall. So this is the natural phenomena that water flows. So now the first point is the systematic observation. So this is our observation that water flows. And next is controlled experiment. Now water flows, this statement we will do the experiment in our laboratory, that we will take a plain surface and we put the water drops and we will see that whether it is flowing or not. If it is a balanced surface, then the water will be stand still, it will not flow. And if we incline the surface, then the water will be flow from the top level to the lower level. So this is our controlled experiment in the lab. And the qualitative reasoning, third one is qualitative reasoning. What is qualitative reasoning? That what we have seen when we are dropping the water drop on the surface, that if we are giving an inclination to the surface, then the water flows from the top layer to the top position to the lower position. So this means the inclination of the surface on which the water is flowing plays a very important role. This is a qualitative observation. And quantitative observation, so what is the angle and at what angle the flow of water will be at a higher speed. So this is the quantitative observation. And the now fifth one is mathematical calculations. So mathematical calculation will give us that what are the quantities which decides the flow of water, and this will give a mathematical expressions. So we will calculate the other quantities related with the flow of water. And the sixth one is predictions. Now what we are predicting? So we are predicting that at this angle we will get the speed of flow of water is like this. So this is our predictions, and the final we will verify these predictions with the mathematical proof. So this is the scientific approach we are doing. Now coming to the point physics, since the physics is the branch of science and physics is the study of basic laws of nature. So now physics is supposed, now there is a very well known quote, that is physics is supposed to be the king of the science and mathematics is supposed to be the queen of the science. And it is I am sorry to say that it is not my statement, it is well known to all that the chemistry is just like a stamp collection. So now coming to the point, this physics, the basic laws of physics, there are two basic laws of physics and you have to concentrate on these 2 points, that there are two basic laws of physics. One is the unification and the other is the reductionism. So one is the unification and the other is the reductionism. These are the two basic laws of physics. So what is unification? As the name indicates, unification means here we are unifying the laws. What we are doing? We are unifying the laws. So this is known as unification. Suppose there are so many phenomena occurring in the nature, and if we govern all these phenomena with a single law, this is known as the unification. Now take an example of gravitation. the law of gravitation. It is given by Sir Isaac Newton. So this is the one law, that is law of gravitation, and the phenomena comes under this gravitations are: the earth moves around the sun, the planet moves around the sun, the moon moves around the earth, and the free fall of the body under the gravity. So all these phenomena are governed by the one law, that is the law of gravitation given by the Sir Isaac Newton. So this is known as unification, and the other is reductionism. Reductionism, as the name indicates, that reductionism means we are reducing the steps, or we are reducing the bigger problem into the smaller problem. So reductionism, it is a process of breaking up of a very large problem into a small pieces. So now take the example, suppose a bullet is fired and it is getting into the wooden board block, and wooden block moves further, and this wooden block then strikes with the pendulum, then pendulum starts swinging. So this is a big problem. Now we will take one by one, that the bullet is fired, we will calculate the momentum at that time, and when it goes inside the block, then the momentum will be again changed. So we will consider the momentum at that time, and finally it will be swinging to the pendulum. So what height the pendulum will reach. So step by step we will calculate the height or the final results. So now the main point, the second topic, that is the scope of physics. Now this is the very important topic, that what is the scope of physics. So now physics can be classified into two categories, that is macroscopic physics and the microscopic physics. Macroscopic means big size and micro means small size. So macroscopic, the physics is subdivided into two categories, that is macroscopic physics and the microscopic physics. This macroscopic physics is also known as classical physics. Macroscopic physics is also known as classical physics, and microscopic physics is known as a quantum physics. Now this macroscopic physics या classical physics is subdivided into four categories, that is mechanics, thermodynamics, electromagnetism, optics. So this macroscopic physics or classical physics is subdivided into four categories. First is mechanics, second is thermodynamics, third is electromagnetism, and the fourth is optics. So this mechanics, in the mechanics we study the law of motion, the elasticity, and the simple harmonic motion. So these are the things we study in the mechanics. And in thermodynamics we study about the temperature, we study about the heat, we study about the laws of thermodynamics, heat engine, and the working of refrigerator. In electromagnetism we study about the charge, the current, alternating current, direct current, motor, and generator, that is AC generator and the DC generator, and the electromagnetic waves. And in optics we study about the light, mirrors, that is reflection, refraction, microscope, the formation of rainbow, dispersion, scattering. And the second category of physics is, that is microscopic physics, and which is known as the quantum physics. It is subdivided into only one category, that is modern physics. This quantum physics is known as the modern physics, or microscopic physics or quantum physics is known as the modern physics. And in the modern physics we study about the atom, electron, X-rays, semiconductors and nucleus. Now the third point is, that is physics, technology and society. So what is the relation between physics, technology and society? The new technology gives birth to the new physics. When there is a new technology, this will give birth to the new physics. The new physics will be generated. So suppose we take the example of steam engine. In earlier times we were using this steam engine for the transportation of the passengers and the luggage. So but the efficiency of the steam engine was very low, so there was a need to increase the efficiency of the steam engine, and this concept gives rise to the physics, that is the thermodynamics, and heat engine and the diesel engines were produced. So new technology gives birth to the new physics, and new physics gives birth to the new technology. Just reverse is also true, that new physics gives birth to the new technology. You take the example of semiconductors. We were studying the semiconductors, then new physics came into the picture, that is silicon chips. We studied about the silicon chips, and this silicon chips gives rise to the new technology, that is laptop, computer, mobile phones, etc. So these mobile phones, computer, laptops, in all these things the silicon chips are being used, and this indicates that new physics gives birth to the new technology. So there is a very good interrelation between the physics, technology and the society. And what for we are doing this? We are doing this for the welfare of the society. New physics gives birth to the new physics, new technology gives birth to the new physics. For what? For the development of the society. New physics gives birth to the new technology. For what? For the development of the society. Now, four fundamental forces in nature. So there are only four fundamental forces in nature. So these four fundamental forces are: first is gravitational force, second is weak nuclear force, third is electromagnetic force, fourth is strong nuclear force. So this gravitational force, what is this gravitational force? We have already studied that in between two masses m1 and m2, if they are kept at a distance r, there is a force, gravitational force, that is F, and which is given by F is equal to G m1 m2 upon r square. G is the gravitational constant, and this gravitational force is a long range force, and this is a weakest force, and there is no medium is required for this force. Now the second is weak nuclear force. This weak nuclear force is produced due to the interaction between the neutrino and antineutrino particles, and only in the radioactive emissions. These weak nuclear force are produced at the time of only in the radioactive emission and with the interaction of the neutrino and antineutrino particles. These weak nuclear force are short range force and very weaker force. And the third one is electromagnetic force. This electromagnetic force, we know that there are two poles, north pole and the south pole. Same poles repel each other, and the opposite poles attract each other. And similarly, in the case of charges, if there is a positive charge, there is a positive charge and negative charge. The same charge, like charges repel each other, and the unlike charges attract each other. And this is a long range force. This electromagnetic force is a long range force, and one of the strongest force. This is one of the strongest force, and no medium required. So there is no requirement of the medium for this electromagnetic force. And the fourth one is strong nuclear force. So this, as we know that in a nucleus, what are the constituents present in the nucleus? That is proton and the neutron. We know that proton and neutron are present in the nucleus, and electrons are revolving around the nucleus in the orbits. So there is a force in between, there is a force of attraction, and this force of attraction is a very strong force. So in between the proton, neutron, and proton and neutron. So the proton and neutron present in the nucleus, they are having a very strong force of attraction in between proton, neutron, and proton and neutron. And without considering the charge on the proton, on the neutron. So there is no effect of charge. So this is a very strong force, and this is a short range force, that is 10 to the power minus 15 meter, and very strongest force in the nature. So nuclear force, or this is a very strongest force of attraction. So it is the strongest force of attraction between proton, neutron, and proton, and does not depend upon the charge. That's why atom is stable. Now force in the decreasing order. We are having four fundamental forces, and these are in the decreasing order as given below. This strong nuclear force, if we take this strong nuclear force as 1, then this is greater than electromagnetic force, and this is equal to 10 to the power minus 2. If this is 1, this will be 10 to the power minus 2, and this electromagnetic force is greater than weak nuclear force, and this will be at the range of 10 to the power minus 13, and this weak nuclear force is greater than gravitational force, that is equal to 10 to the power minus 38. So this gravitational force is the weakest force, and the strong nuclear force is the strongest force. And this is the end of the session, and thank you. Okay.